She stayed silent through the entire chaos, a passenger in the back of the plane who looked like any other frightened traveler. Nobody would have thought she was anything more than another terrified soul caught in a nightmare above the clouds. The story begins like an ordinary flight, an overnight journey filled with businessmen scrolling through their laptops, families trying to calm children, and lone travelers staring out the oval windows into the endless dark sky. The air was routine, safe, predictable. But then it shifted sharply, violently when masked men stormed from the aisles, weapons raised, voices thunderous with demands. The cabin erupted in screams and panicked whispers, and the hijacking began. Through all of it, she remained silent. Not a single word. She didn't cry out, didn't beg, didn't resist. She lowered her eyes and blended into the background as if she didn't exist. The hijackers barked orders, forcing passengers into submission, and no one dared to challenge them. They were ruthless, ready to pull the trigger at the smallest sign of defiance. The air inside that metal tube became heavy with fear. Time slowed. Minutes felt like hours. Among the passengers was a man who kept his composure differently than the rest. A broad-shouldered figure in civilian clothes, but with a posture that spoke of years of discipline. He was a Navy SEAL commander, traveling undercover, blending in with the crowd, his mission unrelated to this flight. Yet destiny had other plans for him. He watched, calculating. Every breath measured, every movement observed. He knew when to wait and when to strike, but this situation was delicate. Too many lives at stake. The hijackers were organized, armed, and paranoid. Any mistake could turn the cabin into a massacre. It was then, in that fragile silence, that he noticed her. She sat near the middle, her face calm in a way that didn't match the hysteria around her. Her silence wasn't born from fear, it was controlled, deliberate. Her eyes scanned the hijackers with the sharpness of someone who had seen danger before. He recognized that kind of stillness. It wasn't weakness. It was training. Something about her presence told him she wasn't just another passenger, but he kept his thoughts to himself. Hours dragged on as negotiations stalled. The hijackers made impossible demands, threatening lives with each passing moment. The commander knew the authorities on the ground would try to handle it, but he also knew time wasn't on their side. The wrong move could bring this plane down. He weighed his options, considered his strategies, but he needed a partner, someone who could move when the moment came. That's when his eyes found her again. She had remained silent, but her body language betrayed her readiness. She wasn't trembling like the others. She wasn't praying under her breath. She was waiting. That realization struck him with a strange certainty. She was capable. She could be the key. The question was, who was she? As the hijackers grew more aggressive, tensions escalated. One of them struck a passenger to prove their seriousness. The commander's hand itched toward his concealed weapon, but one man against many wasn't enough. He needed trust, he needed backup, and in a desperate gamble of instinct, he chose her. Slowly, quietly, he shifted closer, until the chaos provided him cover. Their eyes met, and in that instant, an unspoken connection formed. He saw the steel in her gaze, and she saw the confidence in his. Without words, he made the choice that would define everything. He slipped the weapon from its hidden holster, pressing it into her hand under the cover of shadows and trembling passengers. The world seemed to hold its breath in that second. To hand over a gun in such a situation wasn't just risky, it was insane. But to him, it was the only move left. He trusted his instincts, and his instincts told him she wasn't who she appeared to be. She wrapped her fingers around the cold metal, the weight of the gun fitting perfectly into her grip, as if it belonged there. For the first time since the nightmare began, she lifted her head fully, revealing herself not as a helpless passenger, but as something entirely different. She had been silent not because she was powerless, but because she was waiting for the right moment. The SEAL commander had given her that moment. What followed was swift, precise, almost surgical. She moved with the efficiency of someone trained for combat. The hijackers, confident in their control, never saw it coming. Within seconds, two were disarmed, a third incapacitated. The commander moved in tandem with her, covering angles, neutralizing threats with the sharpness of a man who had lived through countless missions. Together, they shifted the balance of power in that cabin from fear to resistance. The passengers watched in stunned silence as the tide turned. The woman who had said nothing, who had seemed invisible, was suddenly the center of it all. A force of calm fury dismantling the hijackers' control. Each move was executed with clarity, each strike calculated. She wasn't reckless. She was precise, like someone who had trained for this moment her entire life. It was over faster than anyone expected. The remaining hijackers, realizing their plan had collapsed, surrendered under the combined pressure of the commander and the mysterious woman, the cabin filled with the sound of heavy breathing, sobs of relief, and the metallic clatter of weapons being thrown aside. For the first time since the nightmare began, hope filled the air. But then came the questions. Who was she? The commander didn't ask right away, though he already suspected. Her stance, her grip, her movements, they weren't civilian. She wasn't just another traveler. She was something else, someone else. As the authorities boarded after an emergency landing, the passengers erupted with gratitude and disbelief, telling the story of the silent woman who had turned the tide. When it was all over, when the adrenaline had faded and the hijackers were in custody, the commander finally spoke to her. She looked at him with a faint, knowing smile, the kind shared between warriors who had fought on the same battlefield. She thanked him for trusting her. He asked who she was. She gave no name, no rank, no unit. She simply said, someone who was done staying silent. That was the last anyone on that plane saw of her. She disappeared into the shadows of anonymity, her identity as much a mystery as her silence had been. The passengers told and retold the story, but none could say where she came from or where she went. All they knew was that when fear had taken hold, she had been the one to rise. The tale of that night became more than just a hijacking story. It became a legend about silence, courage, and trust. It was about a woman who waited until the right moment, a commander who saw through her disguise, and the choice to hand over a gun when everyone else thought it madness. It was about how, in the darkest hour, sometimes the strongest voice is the one that speaks not with words but with action. For years after, those who were on that plane carried the memory with them. Some called her a guardian angel, others a soldier in disguise. No one knew for certain. The official reports gave little away, sanitized for the public. But for those who were there, the truth was unforgettable. She stayed silent through the hijacking until the SEAL commander gave her his gun, and then she revealed exactly who she really was.